When you're a chair, you get. Oops, sorry.
Welcome to the Assembly Committee on Legislative Operations and Elections. Will the Secretary please call the roll?
Assemblymember Cole. Dickman. Edgeworth. Gonzalez. Hibbets. Howdigy. Miller. Monroe Moreno. Moore. Nadeem. Chair Mosca.
And I am here. Thank you so much. Welcome to the audience in Carson City, those joining by video conference, and those in Las Vegas and listening over the internet. Some housekeeping announcements. Please silence your electronic devices. If you wish to testify, please sign in at the table by the door and provide a business card to the committee secretary. When testifying, please turn on the microphone and clearly state and spell your name for the record and any affiliation. Then turn off the microphone each time you're done speaking. There are hard copies of the meeting materials available for members of the public. Members of the public may also access electronic copies of the materials on the Nevada Legislature's website. Public comment will be taken at the end of the meeting. Each person will be limited to 2 minutes. In addition, the public may submit written testimony to the committee up to 24 hours after the meeting. We expect courtesy and respect in our interactions during the meeting, even if we may not agree. Committee members will be using their laptops to view handouts and other documents, so please do not see that as a sign of inattention or disrespect. And with that, we have one item of business first. We have a committee BDR introduction. BDR 1102, which is sponsored by the Assembly Committee on Legislative Operations and Elections, urges the federal government to maintain the moratorium on the testing of explosive nuclear weapons. Members, as a reminder, a vote in favor of introducing a BDR does not imply a commitment to support the measure later. All this action does is allow the BDR to become a bill and enter the legislative hearing. I will entertain a motion to introduce BDR 1102.
So moved.
I have a motion from Assemblymember Howdigy. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second from Vice Chair Gonzalez. Any discussions on the motion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say nay. The motion carries. Thank you. And with that, we will open the hearing on Assembly Bill 306. The measure revises provisions relating to elections. We have Speaker Yeager presenting AB 306 today for the second time in Legislative Operations and Elections this week. And as a reminder, please limit your presentation to 15 minutes, and please begin when you are ready.
Good afternoon, Chair Mosca, Vice Chair Gonzalez, and members of the Legislative Operations and Elections Committee. My name is Steve Yeager. I represent Assembly District 9 in Southwest Las Vegas, and it is an honor to present Assembly Bill 306 to you this afternoon. This bill deals with drop boxes for mail ballots. And as an initial matter, I need to tell you that this bill is still a work in progress. What you have in front of you is a broad concept that needs to and will be further refined with input from elections officials and others. So I ask for your patience as I work through this to bring you more precise and perhaps more prescriptive language. I have been in this building long enough to know when you are offered a hearing on your bill, you take it, even if your bill isn't yet perfect or ready for prime time. This bill is not yet perfect, nor is it ready for prime time, but I am sure that we are going to get there. In addition, this elections bill is not the only solution I will be bringing forward this session. There is more to come to meet the goal of having election results quicker in our state, including additional resources for election officials to make that happen. So stand by, as I am sure I will be back in this committee again very soon. Chair, as long as I am alive and am in a position to do something about it, mail ballots are here to stay. As long as I am alive and in a position to do something about it, I will fight for the constitutional right for all eligible voters to cast their ballot in a way that makes the most sense for them. Chair, as long as I am alive and in a position to do something about it, I will firmly stand against any attempt to make it more difficult for eligible voters to vote. Frankly, we have fought too damn hard as a country for the right to vote, whether it be on battlefields, on the streets of Selma, or on the Edmund Pettus Bridge. I refuse to accept the idea that we should backtrack from the progress that we have made. Instead, we must continue to make progress. Progress is our mandate. Regression is not an option. The enduring effort of this country is to form a more perfect union. As we approach our 250th anniversary, we have often fallen short of that goal, but we have never tired of trying to get it right, and we must never tire of trying. A more perfect union requires the voices of all eligible voters. Only then will our elected officials truly reflect the wishes and desires of this amazingly diverse nation and this fantastically diverse state. This means we must allow all eligible voters to vote in a safe and secure manner and in a way that makes the most sense for them and their life. Mail-in ballots are becoming more and more popular with voters of all political parties. This really should not come as a surprise. Voting is important, and it shouldn't be overly difficult or burdensome. When mail-in or drop-box voting works best for Nevadans, that is a sign that we are getting it right. I have voted in every way possible over the past few cycles. I've mailed in my ballot, I've put my ballot in a drop box, I voted in person during early voting, and I voted on election day. Each time, I made a choice that worked best for me. Each time, my vote was counted without any problem at all. So let's get to the bill. It is simple in concept, but has the potential to ensure that we get election results quicker, likely on election night itself. I want to talk about existing statute, and then I'll move on to the bill. So this is already law. It is included in the bill. It is the language that is not being changed. For a mail ballot to be counted, unless it is mailed, it must be delivered by hand to the county clerk or placed in a ballot drop box before the time set for the closing of the polls. Each county clerk must establish a ballot drop box at every polling place in the county, including at all early voting sites. A county clerk may establish a ballot drop box at any other location where ballots can be delivered by hand and collected during the early voting period and on election day. And this is an important one because you've probably gotten some emails about this one, as I have too. Drop boxes must be constructed of metal or other rigid material of sufficient strength and resistance to protect the security of the ballots, and must be capable of securely receiving and holding the mail ballots and be locked. Drop boxes must be placed in an accessible and convenient location at the county clerk's office or a polling place and must be available for use during hours when those locations are open to the public. So that is existing law. What does Assembly Bill 306 do? You probably noticed that there is a 3-day gap between the end of early voting, which is the close of business on a Friday, and Election Day, which is the following Tuesday. Ballot drop boxes are not required to be available to the public on those 3 days. Yet there are voters who might want to return a mail ballot to a drop box on that Saturday, Sunday, or Monday for any number of reasons: convenience, work schedule, family reasons, perhaps uncertainty about whether a mail ballot will arrive on time if put in the mail, or really any other reason at all. This bill is designed to require a certain number of ballot drop boxes available to voters in Clark and Washoe counties during the 3 days after the end of early voting. The substantive provisions of AB 306 are in Section 1. As I stated, it's not a long bill. So for the 3-day period we've been talking about between the end of early vote and Election Day, the county clerk in a county of 700,000 or more, Clark County, must establish at least 10 locations where a voter can return their mail ballot in a drop box, which must be open to the public for at least 7 hours each day. In a county of more than 100,000 persons, but less than 700,000, currently Washoe County, the county clerk must establish at least 5 locations, again, open to the public at least 7 hours a day. In all other counties, the county clerk may provide ballot drop boxes at appropriate locations and prescribe the hours they're open for the public to use. So that is the bill in its entirety. Why are we doing this? Why am I proposing this? We are trying to ensure that more ballots are received prior to Election Day so that they can be counted. Now, I have uploaded 2 exhibits to Nellis that give you a breakdown for Washoe and Clark County in terms of ballots recovered from drop boxes in the days leading up to the election and on Election Day. I don't know if you've seen these before because I couldn't tell if they've been submitted to the committee, but I thought it was important enough to give you these and to go through them very quickly just so we can get a sense of what we're talking about here and what we're trying to do. So, Chair, with your indulgence, if we start with the Washoe County document, and I have that up on the screen, first thing to note, if you look at this pie chart, we're going to scroll down to only 2,400 ballots were received after Election Day. I know we had a lot of conversation after the election about why results were taking so long, and there was this, I believe, this idea that like massive amounts of ballots were coming after Election Day. I think this shows us in Washoe, 1.77% of ballots were received after Election Day. So I just wanted to note that as an initial matter. But when you come here to this next chart, this is the ballots received via Dropbox and mail. The light blue bar is Dropbox ballots. So a couple of things I want to note in Washoe. You can actually see there were Dropbox ballots received the 3 days before the election because Washoe did have locations where you could drop off. They're not mandated, but they had a couple of them. But what you notice is they received 11,500 ballots in the Dropbox on Election Day. And when you look at the days before that, obviously they pale in comparison. And I'll scroll down just so you can actually look at the numbers. So, on Election Day they received 11,500. The day before, a couple of thousand. And then you notice the end of early vote, 1031 and 11-1, 2,800, 4,400 apiece. So what that tells you is a lot of people are dropping their ballots off on Election Day. So that is Washoe, and I want to take you to Clark, and as you might expect, the numbers in Clark are quite a bit bigger. And I'll see if I can make this bigger, I don't know, but we'll start with the chart here. And you'll see in Clark County, after Election Day, 9,000 ballots were received, and that represents 2.1%. So again, we're not talking about a lot of ballots after Election Day. And why do I bring that up? I bring that up because if we can count the ballots that are received on Election Day, whether it's Dropbox, whether it's mail, or whether it's in person, we're going to probably have results in 99% of the races, and certainly the federal races that people care the most about. Granted, some of our assembly races are very, very tight, and we care more about those probably than anyone else does, but if we can get most of those ballots, we're talking about being able to count 98% to 98.5% of the ballots on Election Day. If we have those results on Election Day, we're going to know the winners of most races. But I wanted to scroll down and just give you a sense of the magnitude of the issue in Clark County, and I'll just skip down to the biggest chart. So Clark County did not have any places at all to put your mail-in ballot in a drop box in the 3 days before. And you note that 56,000 people put their mail-in ballots in a drop box. That's great. We want people to vote. That's a lot of work for the county clerks to have to try to process. And you'll note that, 4 days before the last day of early vote, that number was 22,000. And then the day before that, it was 11,000. So that just gives you a sense of what our elections officials are having to deal with, right? They are running an election on Election Day, an in-person election, and they're also getting, if you're in Clark County, 56,000 ballots dropped off that they're trying to count. So that is what I'm trying to achieve, is some of those ballots that are being dropped off on Election Day almost certainly would be dropped off on the 3 days before Election Day if there was an ability to do it. In Clark, there's no ability to do it, and I don't know the exact numbers, but I think in Washoe there may have been just one site instead of the 5 that we're requesting. So I'm trying to spread that workload out so those ballots can be received over the weekend and can be ready to go and be processed and tabulated to have them on Election Day. Now, I will admit it's an inexact science. I don't know how many people are going to say, I'm still going to wait until Election Day to drop off my ballot. But I'm sure it's not 56,000 people in Clark County. There are people that certainly would take advantage of drop boxes. Just a couple more things I wanted to note, Chair, is when we looked at the early vote sites and ballot drop box sites in both Clark and Washoe counties, and we compared them to the sites that are actually open on Election Day, And in the 2024 general election, there were enough early vote sites that also served as polling places on election day to satisfy the requirements of this bill if they were simply kept open during that 3-day period. Not for in-person voting, but just as a ballot drop box location. Many other early voting sites were in places that are already open over the weekend, such as libraries or grocery stores. So we feel that complying with the requirements in Assembly Bill 306 shouldn't be overly burdensome and will provide more options for voters to cast their vote in a safe and secure manner that works best for them. Also, the ballot does not prescribe how Clark and Washoe County should comply. We want to leave it as much as possible to the discretion of the local authorities. Many of you know that the early voting sites change quite a bit. The big one next to me that used to be open is no longer there. So I think we want to be careful to not be too prescriptive so that the clerks can make changes as appropriate. But I, of course, anticipate working with the counties to make sure this bill is the absolute best that it can be. Chair, because this is an elections bill, I expect much of the opposition testimony to be full of mostly intentional misinformation, disinformation, and otherwise false assertions. The emails in opposition that I have received make that clear. As elected officials, all of us elected under our current election system, we have an obligation to be truthful and factual when talking about elections here in Nevada. Fraud has been almost non-existent in our state. Our elections are safe, they are secure, the results are legitimate. Be very suspicious of anybody who says otherwise, as there is likely a hidden agenda that is almost certainly aimed at making sure some people don't vote. That is wrong, and Nevadans deserve better than being gaslighted by conspiracy theories peddled by conspiracy theorists who don't live in reality. Chair, with that, I would conclude my remarks. I urge your support of Assembly Bill 306, and I'm ready for questions.
Thank you. And with that, members, any questions? And we will first go to Assembly Member Miller.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, do you mind if I make a brief comment before my question? I would just like to say that when I first moved here to Nevada, I moved from a state where we only had that election day voting. And when you live 50 miles one way from work, and now you have to drive through all of the busy traffic of the city of Detroit to get to the other side of Detroit, and it's November and it's snowing and it's dark, only to get there right before the polls close to stand in line forever. When I moved to Nevada and I heard, no, we've got 2 weeks to vote, it was just the most profound thing I ever heard. So I appreciate even more increasing the accessibility that we have for our voters to vote. Because, again, different schedules, different obligations, so I agree with you. I want to make sure that stays intact. My question is, when it comes to the having the drop boxes on Saturday, first, it's a two-part question that I think could be answered simply. One, what happens to mail that's delivered on Saturday? Is it picked up and then processed if mail ballots are arriving on Saturday? And also, the second part would be with the drop boxes in those locations that we know move during early voting. What is the cost and the time that goes into moving a drop box from a location only for it to be possibly returned back come that Tuesday?
Chair, may I go direct to the member? Steve Yeager for the record. Those are great questions. I don't have the answer to those questions. Obviously, mail is received. I don't know, and perhaps we'll hear from other folks about the exact timeline for processing that. But I think it is important to note, one of the things I mentioned is making sure election officials have the resources they need. This bill doesn't have any money attached to it. You'll notice that, right? There is a bill coming that will have additional money attached to it to be able to make sure that, they can the hope here is they'll actually be able to process those ballots as they come in. Of course, they can't report them until the polls close, but there's already a system in place where those ballots can be tabulated, they can be ready to go. I don't know to the degree that that's happening now, and I don't know what the cost would be to move the drop boxes. I did note, however, if you think about some of these big early voting sites that are open the entire time, and then they're polling place sites, so I think the drop box stays there, but the ballots themselves are transported. So in terms, you wouldn't have to move the drop box. That drop box could just stay there throughout the process. Obviously, you need someone to come get the ballots because it's not going to do any good if they're sitting in the drop box and not actually being counted or tabulated. And then the second part of that, I think, is, if we have an early vote site, I think about next to me, there's an Albertsons down the street that hosts early voting. They're not a voting day site, but they're an early vote site. They have a drop box there, so it'd be a question of what would be the cost to keep that drop box there for 3 additional days through Sunday. You're probably going to need some staff, right? I'm not about just having a drop box sitting there. We've got to make sure it's secured, it's not tampered with. So those are the kind of things we're sort of working through right now, particularly in Clark and Washoe, because this is a mandate on them. It is not optional. Just to figure out what kind of finances we're looking at, and then I'm going to try my best to make sure that one way or another we make those 2 counties whole so they're actually able to pull this off. And truthfully, we're not going to know until, if this bill passes, we're not going to know until 2026 what the voter behavior is. But I do know from knocking on doors, as I know all of you did last cycle, that you did have voters who would ask you on Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, like, how can I go vote? And there wasn't much to tell them other than you can put your ballot in the mail and hope it makes it on time, or you have to go on Tuesday and vote in person or drop your ballot off. It'd be really nice to be able to tell people, well, there's 10 different places you can drop your ballot off here in Clark County. So I think that would drive behavior, if nothing else, so you stop knocking on their door and they stop getting the phone calls and they stop getting the text messages and they stop getting the mailers.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Next, Majority Leader Hedige.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for bringing this bill, Speaker. I'm not sure if this is a question best asked for you or for anyone from the county who's here, but I was looking at the numbers that were outlined in the bill, 10 and 5, and I worked with staff to kind of just get some background information, and I noticed that in Clark County, there's many of early vote sites, right? But then I looked at the early vote sites that existed and then the permanent sites that existed, and there was 16. So 16 early vote sites were also permanent election day sites, meaning their tents were never torn down. They were just there and remained there for those 3 days. And so I was like, oh, why wouldn't we just make all of those 16 permanent sites, since I'm assuming they're probably heavily trafficked sites, and that's why they remain permanent sites on election day. Why wouldn't we make the permanent sites, like all the permanent sites, drop box sites for those 3 days? How did you get to the number 10?
Thank you for the question, Steve Yeager, for the record. I'm going to be honest, 10 and 5 was a pretty arbitrary number that we just picked really out of thin air here to start a discussion. I think you're bringing up a very good point. There are 16, let's say there are 16 already. It may just be easier for elections officials to say, well, let's just keep those 16 as drop boxes, because I think about, when you get your sample ballot, right, at least in Clark, you have the 4-page, you can pull it out, it's got a map, it tells you all the information you'd ever want to know. It may just be easier for the county to say, we're going to keep all 16. This requires a minimum of 10, but it does not say they couldn't have more than 10. So I would anticipate, just for ease of information, that they may say, well, let's just keep all 16 of those open. Those are conversations that I'm still having with the counties. When I said I'm still working on this to try to get this right, I mean, every place is different, but I think that would be an option to just keep those open. Of course, there's going to be some staffing issues, right? Because I don't believe right now that those places are necessarily staffed over those 3 days. They reopen on very early on election morning to get started, so there'll be some personnel costs there as well. But I think that would be an option. And remember, this is just a minimum. Counties can always do more than what's required in the bill if they think that makes sense. And I guess the last part of that, is just I want to have some flexibility, because maybe 16 is not the right number. Maybe they only need 5 or 6. I mean, I think they'll be able to look at the voter patterns, and I do also have a bill coming to give us better information about how ballots are received and in what manner they're received, because it would really be nice to know, if we do this bill, how many ballots are dropped off at each location on which days. I think that could help counties in future cycles be a little bit more nimble in terms of where these should be located.
Thank you. Next question, Assemblymember Cole.
Thank you for bringing this. I actually have always kind of wondered why early voting stopped when it did, when there was that gap. And so I guess my question is, just logistically, is there some kind of a reason? And I know you're working with the county clerks and everything to figure that out, but maybe there's some logistical reason where they have to get prepared for something or whatnot. But I think it's still a workable solution to use those permanent sites.
Steve Yeager for the record. Great question. I have asked that same thing myself because I think in theory, I mean, you could really potentially have early voting through Monday, right, and the election on Tuesday. I'm not proposing that, just so everyone is clear. But I think there's always just been a desire of the elections officials to have a weekend to kind of reset and get ready. Obviously, I shouldn't say obviously, but I think traditionally at least, election day sites, you need to make sure you have enough people there. You need to make sure they're staffed appropriately. It's a little bit of a different ballgame. So I think they've always liked to have that chance to kind of try to process everything they've gotten up until that time, have a little bit of a deep breath, and then get ready for election day. I mean, this would change that a little bit, right? Ballots would be coming in through the drop box, so you'd have to be able to process those. But I think that's why there's just been a desire to have a little bit of a break, and then a lot of folks who work on election day only work on election day. They're not there the entire early vote process. So I think there's probably some staff training and some of that happens maybe the days leading up to the election.
Thank you. Members, other questions? Okay, seeing none, thank you so much. We will now move into testimony of support for Assembly Bill 306. Each person has 2 minutes to provide testimony. Members of the public may provide testimony in person or over the phone by calling 888-475-4499 and entering the meeting ID 830-5632-5537. Don't forget to state and spell your name for the record. You have 2 minutes, and I'll start the timer after you state and spell your name.
Good afternoon, Chair Mosca, Vice Chair Gonzalez, and members of the committee. For the record, my name is Alex Pike, Alexpike, with Flint Judici Government Affairs, testifying in support of AB 306 on behalf of the City of Fernley. The city feels that this bill will strengthen the election process in the state and significantly enhance voter access in the City of Fernley. During the 2024 general election, there were over 100 ballots dropped off at the City Hall before early voting even began. This highlighted the demand for accessible voting options, and we urge you to support AB 306. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chair and members of the committee. My name is Kayla Maese, spelled Kaylah. Last name is Maese. I'm a civil rights analyst at the ACLU of Nevada, and we support this bill, and we thank Speaker Yeager for bringing this bill forward. Thank you. Good afternoon, Chair and committee members. My name is Jennifer Willett, JenniferWillett, and I'm the Senior Campaign Manager, All Voting is Local Action Nevada, an organization that advocates for policies and legislative priorities that expand voter access. We strongly support this bill, which we believe is common sense and will give voters more opportunities to drop off their ballots after early voting ends and before in-person voting begins, again on Election Day. As stated in Washoe and Clark counties, AB 306 will add at least 15 new drop boxes for voters to utilize during the last critical weekend before Election Day. We also believe this bill will provide much needed support for voters in our 15 rural counties if the counties choose to do so. These voters are geographically dispersed, resulting in longer distances for voters to travel to cast their ballots, and we believe they need as much flexibility as possible. Overall, this bill will reduce voters' confusion during the last critical weekend, provide another voting option, and help ease the rush on Election Day. We urge you to support this bill.
Hello, committee members. Tony Ramirez with Make the Road Nevada. That's TonyRamirez. We are in strong support of this bill and urge the committee to support as well. Thank you.
Chair Mosca, Isaac Tenorio with Strategy 360, today representing Campy Legal Center. Chair Mosca, Vice Chair Gonzalez, members of the committee. Campy Legal Center is in support of AB 306, which would implement a needed improvement to the current Nevada statute around drop boxes. This legislation would ensure that more Nevadans have access to secure drop boxes during the critical juncture in the election period, the time between early voting and election day itself. Explicitly requiring a specific number of drop boxes in jurisdictions to ensure that voters will be confident and there will be a place and time for them to securely drop their mail ballots ahead of election day. Having mandatory drop boxes available to the public during this time may help offset the number of ballots arriving on or after election day and enable election officials to process mail-in ballots more efficiently during this busy time. We thank Speaker Yeager for bringing this important piece of legislation, and we urge the committee to support this bill. Thank you so much.
Mr. Tenorio, could you spell your name for our
Oh,
committee secretary?
yes. Izacktenorio. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chair, members of the committee. My name is Mark Valash, and I'm the Deputy Secretary of State for Elections. Here today on behalf of Secretary of State Francisco Aguilar. My name is spelled MarkWlaschin. Secretary Aguilar, who is unable to attend today, is in support of this bill and asked me to testify as such, primarily because it increases the access to the ballot box, increases capacity to the counties, which will directly increase the ability for the counties to report results in a more timely manner. And for that reason, the Secretary urges your support and consideration of the bill. Thank you.
Thank you, committee members. For the record, Reverend Paul Larson, Lutheran Engagement and Advocacy in Nevada. On behalf of Lutherans across Nevada, I rise in support of AB 306. We believe this bill will increase the access for all Nevadans, especially in our rural communities.
And if you could spell your name for the record.
Oh, Paul Larson, Larson.
Okay, thank you. Okay, seeing no more here in Carson City, we will move down to Las Vegas. Please feel free to fill in the tables, the chairs at the table, and please state your name and spell it for the record. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chair Mosca and members of the committee. For the record, my name is Priscilla Gomez. That's spelled Priscella, last name Gomez. I'm the Democracy Manager at Silver State Voices. I'm here to testify in support of AB 306 on behalf of my organization and the Let Nevadans Vote Coalition. At Silver State Voices, our coalition conducts Get Out the Vote, voter education, and election protection programs. Before each election, we often receive questions from voters about how to cast their ballots. Through our outreach, we find that many voters are surprised to learn that they cannot drop off their ballots at drop-off boxes and must instead rely on mailing them through the U.S. Postal Service. Extending voter access by implementing drop-off boxes between the period after early voting and before Election Day not only provides voters with additional time to return their ballots, but also has the potential to increase voter turnout. This bill would make it easier to process mail ballots quickly and effectively, allowing for faster results on Election Day. With voting by mail growing in popularity, it is crucial that we make this safe and secure process as smooth and efficient as possible for both voters and election workers, ensuring voters can participate with confidence and ease. Thank you, Speaker Yeager, for sponsoring this bill, and we urge this committee to support AB 306. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Mosca and members of the committee. My name is Eric Jang, ERICJENG. I'm the Executive Director with One APIA Nevada. First of all, we would like to thank Speaker Yeager for bringing forth AB 306. It is particularly significant for Nevada's Asian and Pacific Islander community, which has experienced substantial growth in recent years, making it one of the fastest growing demographic groups in the state. Despite the growth, our voter participation has historically lagged behind other groups. Our community are heavily in hospitality, healthcare, and small business industries that our owners, our folks are working shifts in a 24/7 town. By increasing the number of ballot drop box locations, AB 306 directly addresses issues like accessibility, making it safer and more convenient for our voters to participate in the electoral process. And for that, we urge you to support AB 306. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else in Las Vegas?
Yes. Good afternoon, Chair Mosca and members of the committee. My name is Ashley Dodson, ASHLEYDODSON for the record, with Anchor Perspectives on behalf of the NAACP Chapter 1111 in Silver State Voices in support of Assembly Bill 306. As a leading civil rights organization, the NAACP has a deep-rooted commitment to voter protection, civic engagement, and dismantling systemic barriers that disproportionately affect Black and marginalized communities. Historically, restrictive voting policies have suppressed voter participation, particularly among communities of color. By increasing the number of mail ballot drop box locations during a critical period of the election cycle, AB 306 directly aligns with the NAACP's mission to advance equitable voting access and protect democracy for all Americans. This will also expand access, eliminate barriers. Many voters face challenges due to work schedules, caregiving responsibilities, disabilities, or lack of transportation. Extending drop box availability ensures all eligible voters have the opportunity to cast their ballot without unnecessary restrictions. This will also protect the integrity of mail voting. Mail voting has been a secure and reliable voting method for decades. By formalizing additional drop box locations and maintaining strict chain of custody measures, AB 306 enhances election security while promoting voter confidence. This will also address historic disenfranchisement. Communities of color have historically faced voter suppression tactics such as polling place closures and restrictive voting laws. Expanding mail ballot drop box locations is a proactive step toward ensuring every Nevadan, regardless of zip code, can participate fully in the electoral process. As someone deeply involved in civic engagement and advocacy, I believe that every voter should have more, not fewer, options to participate in democracy. AB 306 is necessary and common sense reform that ensures Nevada remains a leader in voting accessibility. We urge this committee to stand on the right side of history by supporting this bill and prioritizing voter equity and participation. Thank you, Speaker Yeager, for bringing this bill forth, and we urge you to pass this swiftly. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chair Mosca and members of the committee. My name is William Moore, spelled Williammoore. I'm the Nevada Civic Engagement Director with Mi Familia en Acción, here testifying in support of AB 306. Mi Familia en Acción is a civic engagement organization where we focus on building Latino political power. We advocate for issues that impact Latino communities, including voting rights. We support AB 306 because it's practical legislation that expands an already popular and secure method of voting for Nevada voters. Implementing this bill would enable more voters to have the opportunity to participate in elections, irrespective of where in Nevada they call home. Mi Familia en Acción Nevada always talks to our communities during the election season, doing door-to-door canvassing and voter education. And we always receive feedback from voters in our community that they would like to have more options to cast their ballot before the general election. Our electorate in Nevada is a dynamic and becoming increasingly diverse. Policies like AB 306 allow us to create a democracy that reflects that, while also addressing barriers that have historically excluded BIPOC communities. At Mi Familia en Acción, we believe that participation is an integral part of growing stronger communities. Thank you, Speaker Yeager, Assembly Member Monroe Moreno, Chair Mosca, Senator Canizaro, and Senator Orenshaw for sponsoring this bill. We recommend the committee support AB 306. Thank you.
Anyone else in Las Vegas? Okay, thank you. And with that, AVH, we will go to the phone line for testimony in support of Assembly Bill 306.
To testify in support of Assembly Bill 306, please press star 9 to take your place in the queue.
I am in opposition. I don't think it's my turn yet.
Okay, thank you. You can stay on the line, and when we're in opposition, you can press star 9. AVH, next caller, please.
Chair and members of the committee, my name is Shelby Swartz, SHELBIE, SWARTZ, and I'm the Executive Director of Battleborn Progress and the Institute for Progressive Nevada, and we are in strong support of AB 306. I'd like to take a moment to thank Speaker Yeager for his leadership in bringing this bill forward. This dedication to finding common sense solutions that ease the ballot counting process without limiting voter access or infringing on the rights of Nevadans is commendable. As a member of the Let Nevadans Vote Coalition, we believe elections should be secure, efficient, and accessible, and AB 306 strikes that balance. By maintaining secure and convenient voting options while streamlining ballot collection, this bill reinforces confidence in our election process without unnecessary restrictions and makes voting easier, not more difficult. Elections should be secure, efficient, and accessible, and this bill accomplishes all three. I appreciate Speaker Yeager's thoughtful approach to this issue and urge the committee to support AB 306. Thank you.
Thank you. Next caller.
Hello, Chair and members of the committee. My name is Tristan St. Denis. That's TRYSTINST.DENIS, and I am the Policy Associate with the Nevada Conservation League. We at the Nevada Conservation League work to protect Nevada's environment and uphold the values of Nevadans while doing so. We believe the health of our planet and the health of our democracy are linked. This bill will ensure that there are ample ballot boxes available in each county, making voting more accessible for all. We urge you to support this bill. Thank you.
Next caller.
Hello, members of the committee. My name is Paula Luna. That's PAULALUNA. I am a resident of Nevada, and I am the Deputy Director of Battleborn Progress. However, I am calling in support of AB 306 in my personal capacity. Anything that allows better access to the ballot box is something that we should implement. I thank you all for your time, and I thank the Speaker for introducing the bill. Thank you.
Next caller.
Good afternoon, Chair Mosca and members of the committee. My name is Tara Webster, TARAWEBSTER, and I'm calling in support of Assembly Bill 306 on behalf of the Progressive Leadership Alliance of Nevada. PLAN believes that our democracy is strengthened when more people can participate and have their voices heard. Ballot boxes provide a safe and efficient way for voters to return their ballots directly to election officials by the deadline, ensuring that every vote is counted. Expanding access to ballot boxes increases options for all voters in Nevada and supports a vibrant democracy. Thank you.
Thank you. Next caller. Caller, if you're speaking, we do not hear you.
Sorry, Chair, that caller hung up. I did move on to the next caller.
Thank you.
Caller with the last three digits, 218. Please press *6 to unmute yourself.
Thank you. Sorry. Good afternoon, Assembly members. My name is Bree Schmidt, BRISEHMIDT, testifying in support of AB 306. I am a program associate with Silver State Equality, Nevada's statewide LGBTQ+ civil rights organization. We work to bring the voices of LGBTQ+ people and allies to institutions of power in Nevada. By extending access to mail ballot drop boxes, AB 306 increases the ability of voters to engage in the electoral process, benefiting everybody. We urge you to support AB 306. Thank you.
Thank you. Next caller.
Good afternoon, Chair Mosca and members of the committee. My name is Rudy Zamora with Chicanos por la Casa. That's RUDYZAMORA. AB 306 is a crucial piece of legislation that will lead to a higher voter participation and more inclusive electoral process by offering additional opportunities for all voters to cast their ballots in Nevada. We urge the committee to support this bill. Thank you.
Next caller.
Hi, this is Katree Saunders for the record, KATREE SAUNDERS, and I am in actually opposition. I'm deeply concerned about the
Thank
election
you, Ms.
integrity in Nevada.
Saunders. We are in support right now. Definitely stay on the line and we will be going to opposition next. So don't go anywhere. Okay, next caller in support, please.
If you would like to testify in support of Assembly Bill 306, please press star 9 to take your place in the queue.
Good day, Chair and members of the committee. I hope you can hear me. I'm outside and it's cold. This is Dora Martinez, and I'm with the Nevada Disability Peer Action Coalition. We thank Speaker Yeager for bringing forward this common sense bill. As people with disabilities, transportation is not always available, and and sometimes when the time are short, we cannot drop our mail ballots. So this will allow us to have more time. And so the caregivers that care for people with disability will help them drop their ballot. So thank you so much, Steve Yeager and everyone. Thank you. Have a good day.
Oh my God. Thank you. Next caller.
Chair, we have no additional callers in support at this time.
Okay, thank you so much. We will now move into opposition of Assembly Bill 306. If you are here for testimony in opposition in Carson City, feel free to fill the chairs as well in Las Vegas. You can start filling the chairs as well. Don't forget to state and spell your name for the record. It really helps our committee secretary who's doing the minutes, and you will have 2 minutes. So you may begin.
Brianna Cowan for the record, BRIANNA COWAN. Chair and members of the committee, thank you for allowing us to provide testimony today. I represent the Nevada Federation of Republican Women, and we represent 18 clubs statewide, more than 1,500 members, and we strongly oppose AB 306 due to the lack of provisions for monitoring of the drop boxes. In May of 2021, we voted in a favor of an election integrity resolution, and unmonitored drop boxes do not promote election integrity. The Nevada Federation of Republican Women are aware that many elections here and elsewhere are often decided by a handful of votes, and therefore it is crucially important to do all that is reasonably reasonable that we can do to ensure that we have confidence in this legal measure, and that every legal voter has his or her vote count. And this makes a real difference in the election process. Unfortunately, AB 306, with its unmonitored election drop boxes, would not impart confidence in our election process. Please vote no on AB 306, and I thank you for your time, committee.
Good afternoon, members of the committee. My name is Janine Hansen, JANINEHANSEN. I think everybody has that by now. I'm the state chairman of the Independent American Party. I think it's unfortunate that people who have sincere concerns about maintaining election integrity would be labeled as conspiracy theorists who don't live in reality. The only time I feel I don't live in reality is when I'm in this building. The rest of the time when I'm in Elko with my chickens, I really know what real life is. I would like to say that in Elko, when I handed in my mail-in ballot, I was very pleased because they took it at the election center. They checked on the computer to see if I'd voted before, and I felt very secure in having turned in my ballot there. It was a great opportunity for me. One of the questions that I have about this bill is that when you have a drop box at a voting center or at an early voting center, you have some kind of security there. You have people who are there monitoring what's going on. We see nothing in this bill about what kind of security will be available for these drop boxes that aren't at locations where people are always there, just where they are now. We always know that they have people there, that there's election officials there and security. So that's one of our concerns. We want everyone to feel secure about casting their ballot. There's a lot of opportunities to vote now, a lot more than when I started a long time ago, when we only had election day to vote. The other concern I continue to have that doesn't really have anything to do with this bill is the fact that instead of finalizing the election on election day, we have ballots coming in after that. I think that causes for consternation for a lot of candidates and also concerns and confusion for some of the people. I think that it would be best if we finalized all the election on election day. So if we can be secure in the fact that there will be security at those locations that are watching those, because, you know, before 2020, ballot harvesting in Nevada was a felony. And I think it's an important thing for us to maintain election integrity at all times. And it's just because we believe in that and not because we're conspiracy theorists that we're concerned about this bill. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chair and Committee. My name is Jim DeGraffenreid, Jimdegraffenreid. I'm Nevada's Republican National Committee man, here today on behalf of the Nevada Republican Party in opposition to AB 306. We're in agreement with the bill's sponsor that it should be easy for voters to participate in Nevada elections. However, it is already very easy to vote in Nevada. Voters can participate on Election Day, 2 weeks of early in-person voting, mail-in ballots, drop boxes, and electronically. Additionally, Nevada allows same-day voter registration, which further expands voter opportunities. Many of these enhancements, such as universal mail ballots, have been presented as a way to increase participation, but the facts show that turnout has not increased as a result. At 77.26%, 2020 statewide turnout with expanded voting opportunities was only 0.5% higher than in the 2016 presidential election. Far from being record turnout, that turnout was down more than 3.5% from just over 80% in the 2012 presidential election. In 2024, we saw turnout down again from the previous presidential at 72.84%. So given that expanded voting methods have not increased turnout, we're very concerned about further expansions that might reduce security. Particularly troubling in this bill is Section 3, which allows ballots harvested by third parties to be delivered to unmonitored drop boxes. Instead of making it easier for third parties to collect and deliver ballots, we should be focused on measures to restore the security of our elections. For example, requiring all mail ballots to be postmarked and received by Election Day to be counted. When ballots are handled by third parties, the possibility of improper handling or even malicious action does increase. The Nevada Republican Party supports measures like voter ID to strengthen the integrity of our elections, but we do not support expanding ballot box locations and times. Please vote no on AB 306. Thank you.
Penny Brock for the record from Washoe County. This is an unfunded mandate. Number two, what about local control of our elections? We in Washoe County, the voters want local control. We don't want the legislature to mandate to us how our elections should be run. Local control was always the foundation of our American voter system. We do not want state control of our elections. You find that in countries where they don't have true freedom. And I am not a conspiracy theorist. I did not appreciate being accused of that because I oppose this bill. That is not fair. Secondly, it does not require security, such as cameras on every drop box. We need security on drop boxes. This came about because of universal mail-in ballots. Mail-in. What are we doing dropping them off? It's mail-in ballots. And we do have drop boxes already called mailing your ballot in. This will increase an opportunity for election fraud. And this matter of how many drop boxes to have in your county should be determined by our county commissioners, with them hearing from the people of each county. If Clark County wants more drop boxes, then they should go to their county commissioners and ask them to do it. I attend all the county commission meetings. I have not heard anybody talking about we need more drop boxes. Why are you going to put that on Washoe County and the rural counties when those in Clark County that sponsored this bill, they should merely go to their county commissioners in Clark County?
And thank you, Ms. Brock. We're at 2 minutes. Thank you. Anyone else here in Carson City? We'll go down to Las Vegas for opposition in Assembly Bill 306. Seeing none, AVH, we will now go to the phone lines for opposition of Assembly Bill 306.
Thank you, Chair. If you wish to testify in opposition for Assembly Bill 306, please press star 9 to take your place in the queue.
Hello, everyone. Cyrus Hojati, Cyrus Hojjaty. I will ditto the comments made about the previous speakers, and I also like to add one thing that concerns me is like, what is the end goal of all this in the coming years? Like, are we going to be able to vote on our phones? So, I just want to know the clear path. But other than that, thank you so much for allowing us to testify.
Thank you. Next caller.
Hello, my name is Michael Ryan, Michaelryan. I'm a longtime resident of Nevada and a Marine Corps veteran. Please vote no on AB 306. What are the security measures for these mandated Dropbox locations? There is plenty of opportunity between early voting and the election for people to vote. This bill increases the opportunity for stuffing the ballot box with mail-in ballots and ballot harvesting. Do not make election fraud easier. Please do not respond and say there was no widespread fraud. Just view filmmaker Dinesh D'Souza's 2000 Mules documentary, which purports to prove widespread, coordinated, and deliberate voter fraud in the 2020 election. Do not make election fraud easier in the state of Nevada. To Speaker Yeager, I am personally offended by your assertion that people who oppose this bill are conspiracy theorists, gaslighting, etc. You should be ashamed of yourself and apologize for making these remarks. Please vote no on AB 306. Thank you.
Thank you. Next caller.
Yes, you're hearing me now?
Yes, caller, we hear you. If you can state and spell your name for the record, and then you may
Okay,
begin.
thank you. My name is Paul Bodine, spelled Paulbodine, from Henderson, Nevada. And I want to thank Chairperson Mosca and the entire committee for allowing me to testify in this matter. I haven't really studied this a whole lot, but I just want to really reply to some of the comments I've had in support. Even Assemblyperson, the Assemblyperson who has brought this bill has said there's really no proof that this is going to do anything. We just have to put it into place, and then we're going to find out. I'm wondering, not one single person who testified in the affirmative to support this bill is a voter, except for one young lady who said she was actually also a part of a advocacy group, a voter advocacy group. So really, everybody who voted in support of it are not really. They probably are voters, but they're not. They're all also associated with organizations that are advocating for this legislation. I don't see the proof that it's necessary. And I guess my final comment would be: do the marginalized communities not trust the post office? And our post office is not easier to get to than these 10 drop boxes that you're proposing? So thanks for letting me testify. And I just don't see any reason to spend extra money and have the counties either. I believe this is just for Clark and Washoe. Have anybody from Clark and Washoe election departments actually brought this to your attention as an issue or as a problem? Thank you.
Thank you. Next caller.
Good afternoon. This is Oscar Williams, OSCAR-WILLIAMS from Reno, Nevada. I am opposed to AB 306 because it further enshrines ballot harvesting. There's no chain of custody provisions in this bill. There's impossible to ensure the integrity of elections if there's no chain of custody. Ballot harvesting without a registry of who's touching those ballots It's just a recipe for fraud and abuse. At least if you're going to have ballot harvesting, have a registry of people who are the assigned person to assist the voter who has been granted privilege to transport the ballot for them. I'd like to have a registry of that. We got voter registries you could put in their assignment. All right. And one sort of final point, sort of a general note. I will live to the end of my days to ensure that people can vote in person on a paper ballot. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next caller.
Hello, everybody up in Carson City. The other folks who are in this meeting.
Caller, can you please state and spell your name for the record?
I am. I'm getting there.
Okay, thank you. We appreciate it. Go
Please
ahead.
don't cut me off. Please. Why did you cut me off? That was unnecessary. Okay.
You can continue. I did not start your timer, so you're good to go.
You cut me off again. Listen, I'm all too familiar voice in Nevada. This is JC, John Carlo. And basically, we know that these drop boxes do not use voter IDs. So when you guys say that it's a safe way to vote, it's really not safe. Because when we go vote in person, you have to show an ID, correct? So, but when you drop off this ballot, there is no voter ID that needs to be shown. So that's unsecured. And then also, there's no cameras that are going to be monitoring these drop boxes. And criminals know that. Voter frauds will take advantage of this. And we're not conspiracy theorists. There is widespread voter fraud all across the nation. There's many documentaries on it. Mr. Yeager, you should watch 2000 Mules that was filmed out of Wisconsin. And there was two people that had threats put on their lives. And they had FBI, they were working with the FBI, and the FBI gave up their informants. And so the FBI cannot even be trusted to secure votes. And now you guys want to make it easier for people to make fraudulent votes. We are not against this, but know that God is watching, and I hope that you guys will be around for public comment. So I'm going to try to be on public comment, and that's all I have to say for now.
Thank you. Next caller.
Hello, thank you, Assembly and Chairs. My name is Catrice Saunders, KATREESAUNDERS. I have been deeply impacted by the war on drugs at a state level and a federal level. I'm deeply concerned about election integrity in Nevada. I've personally experienced the impact of bad leadership in legislation by Steve Yeager and friends by calling us conspiracy theorists because we're pointing out the injustices, and election integrity is disrespectful, and we all deserve an apology. We are just trying to make sure that people can vote surely and justly, as well as the gaslighting tactics employed by special interest groups I've had to deal with. We need transparency and accountability. I oppose AB 306 because it increases the risk of human error in our elections and fraud. I voted early to make sure that my voice was heard. I want to be confident that my vote and every vote is counted accurately and fairly, and ensure that there is no ballot harvesting, because this is a problem. I've had to deal with Nevada legislation for them changing the laws to exclude me and then having to have them write a bill. I know what it's like firsthand to deal with fraud with Nevada state legislator. The Legislative Council Bureau is rogue, and they're committing the fraud, and there needs to be justice. Like the gentleman said before me, God is watching, and you guys will be held accountable. Thank you for your time today. My name is Catrice Saunders. I do social justice and advocacy at a state level, federal level for Americans through safe access and the Fast Prisoners Project. I've helped build hundreds of millions of dollars for the state of Nevada and local business owners, and I'm still fighting for social justice. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next caller.
My name's Daniel Smith, SMITH. I just want to, put out my opposition to this bill. So I agree with all the others who oppose it. My biggest issue with the voting system here in Nevada is that during COVID, mail-in ballots were put in as an emergency situation. There is no emergency. We should get rid of mail-in balloting, save thousands, about tens of thousands of dollars by taking and going back to our old system. Thank you for letting me speak. God bless, and God bless America.
Thank you. Next caller.
Hello, members of the committee. My name is Leslie Quinn. I'm a registered voter in Clark County. I asked my senator in District 8 and Assemblywoman in District 5 to oppose AB 306. Voting is a privilege for U.S. citizens, as noted in the 14th Amendment of the U.S. Constitution. We, the people, are being gaslighted by those submitting AB 306. This will eventually create additional financial burden on Nevadan taxpayers. Why are our legislators why aren't they promoting voting on one day only and counting the vote the same day? This will cut down on taxpayer financial burden and potential voting fraud. Analytics currently being reviewed now state otherwise than what Assemblyman Yeager stated. If the true goal is to increase voter participation and to create safe and secure voting, then AB 306 is not the way to get there. As far as those that are either elderly, military, or those that can't get to the voting sites because of any type of disability, that's what you have absentee ballots for. So I strongly oppose this, and I ask that my legislators and all legislators do the same. And just to quote Theodore Roosevelt, a vote is like a rifle. Its usefulness depends upon the character of the user. So we're calling upon the character of all of you legislators to do what's right by we the people, U.S. citizens, and vote and oppose AB 306. Thank you.
Thank you. Next caller.
Good afternoon. My name is Iris Stone, IRISSTONE. I oppose AB 306. This bill expands the ability to have mail ballot drop boxes after early voting and before Election Day, which amounts to 3 extra days. What problem are we solving here? Certainly not voter access. Mail ballots can be mailed in or dropped off for a period of up to 4 weeks. Early voting lasts 2 weeks, and then there's Election Day. This proposed amendment increases the cost of running elections and adds to the workload of the county clerks, who must increasingly plan, deliver, and collect mail ballots from multiple geographic locations as specified in NRS 293252. This amendment represents overreach by telling county clerks how to do their job. For example, the bill specifies an arbitrary minimum number of drop boxes depending on population, but not an upper limit. What is the logic for this besides implementing a forcing function? NRS 293249 requires that these boxes be supervised. This proposed amendment, as written, ignores existing statutes because drop boxes can be located inside or outside and don't need to be supervised. There's another issue with unsupervised drop boxes. With existing law, the election worker inside the polling location or city hall verifies if mail ballots have signatures and catches quite a few without them, thereby avoiding mail ballots going to the curing process. Unsupervised drop boxes will add to the total ballots needing curing, again increasing costs and adding workload to the election workers. Lastly, Adding these 3 days to the election cycle encourages last-minute ballot collection, also called ballot harvesting. Since partial election results are available during this time, it's fairly easy to estimate the range of ballots required to win a race. Behavior like this was outlawed prior to 2021. Let's not add to this phenomenon. I urge you to withdraw AB 306. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next caller.
Hi, this is Yolanda Knock. I'm calling, representing myself, and I have opposed this bill because it's, sorry. I oppose AB 306 because it does not provide security for the drop boxes, and I think that is a problem. I actually went last June and voted. I happened to be in Reno, and so I thought, oh, I'll just drop my ballot off at the Register of Voters. And shockingly enough, outside the door, there was this big kind of trash can-like thing. Drop your ballot here. It was completely open at the top. Anybody could have walked by and started picking up ballots and taking them off. And anyway, it was very scary for me. And so we need security for these drop boxes. Thank you very much.
Next caller.
If you recently joined the call and would like to testify in opposition of Assembly Bill 306, please press star 9 to take your place in the queue. Caller with the last 3 digits 992, please press star 6 to unmute yourself. Again, caller with the last 3 digits 992, please press star 6 to unmute yourself.
Hello.
We hear you, caller.
Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. My name is Pam Bennett, Pambennetts. We must dismantle our entire election system to stop the selection instead of elections of our uniparty power. To hear that the elections are safe and fair is grandstanding and a complete and utter lie. To call us that have worked on nationwide election integrity for the last 5 years of my life, not living in reality, is more than insulting. Universal mail ballots for drop boxes should be illegal in general, as there is no way to check who is dropping the ballot in the mail or how many. We got mail ballots passed in Nevada after emergency powers were given for a politically driven virus that is finally being put into the spotlight for the truth of the scamdemic that it actually was. I am not sure why we even have mail ballots legal now. It was put into power under false pretenses. The fact this bill is even being voted on is sickening. Voting mules have been videotaped all over the United States of America. The person sponsoring this bill had over $690,000 in campaign funds. It must be nice that money talks, and apparently you don't look at reality. I find it hilarious that politicians from the legal beagle side of the aisle won't be honest about voter integrity, but continue to destroy it with, like this bill, more drop boxes do. The drop boxes have no chain of custody, no cameras, no security. The boxes allow for fraudulent voters to drop off votes by bulk, take longer to count, and Lord knows we don't need longer counting in Nevada. Clearly, our counters went to CCSD. You sent 1.9 mail ballots out and only 700,000 were accepted. Where did the others go? It's a waste of dollars and transparency. And these extra drop boxes, are these extra drop boxes for the missing balance? One would ask. Please stand with we the people when you work for us. Just once.
and tear this election
Thank
system
you.
to the ground
AVH,
and
next
vote
caller,
no on this
please.
outlandish request of bill.
Caller, you're unmuted. Please go ahead. Caller with the last three digits 939. Please make sure that your phone is unmuted on your end. You are unmuted on our end.
Okay, I got it this time. Good afternoon. My name is Tammy Romo, Tamiro. I oppose AB 306. I got other callers ahead of me. I am deeply offended that I would be called a conspiracy theorist when bills are being passed at 2 and 3 o'clock in the morning during the pandemic that was opposed upon us or put upon us, when 30,000 votes get deleted, when votes are being found on the last day of counting, and then we're being told it was a safe and fair election. That is not safe and fair, any of those circumstances there. And as far as people being able to vote, we have plenty of time to vote. In Clark County, the casinos bus their employees to go vote. So there's no excuse that work won't let me go, because no, work has to let you go. They will bus you there. People that have disabilities, they have absentee voting to use, as well as the bus system that they have set up particularly for them. So everybody has enough time to get out there and vote. There isn't any reason why we need an extra 3 days to add to the system that we already have. And I agree with everybody else. Anything that's unmanned, unwatched is just going to lead to more fraud, and people aren't voting because they don't believe in the system anymore. I walk the doors, door to door, and people do not believe in the system. They distrust the system. They believe that their vote's not going to count because of the things that have been done and said when it is not a fair and just election. So please do not vote for AB 306. It is totally against election integrity. Thank you.
Thank you. Next caller.
Thank you, Chair. We have no additional callers in opposition at this time.
Thank you. With that, we will now open testimony in neutral here in Carson City. We see someone approaching, and if anyone is in Las Vegas for neutral, you can start filling in the chairs.
Hello, committee, Chair Muska, members of the committee. My name is Ashley Kennedy, representing Clark County. I wasn't planning to testify today, but during the committee questions, I thought I would come up here and answer a few things. Currently, I think there was a question raised on what happens, and I'm sorry, I did not spell my name, Ashley, last name Kennedy. There's a question raised about what happens in those 3 days at the elections department after early voting has ended and before election day. We're still receiving and processing ballots, things that came in from the post office. We have a really slim team during those few days as we prep for election day. And so with that, to implement this bill, we will need to increase our staff capacity and a little bit more logistics to ensure that we are able to pick up the ballots that are dropped off. And then there was a couple questions raised about the vote centers. So we are well in advance preparing our vote centers. I think our elections department will start having those conversations by this fall of our election sites for the next election cycle. There are some sites that I think everyone's pretty familiar with in our community that have always been an election site, like the Galleria Mall, for example, which is a pretty popular one. But for some of the temporary sites, we have to work with those businesses to allow us to have a site there. And so it's a lot of back and forth. We need a willing partner in that. So we definitely want to make sure that there's some voter education so that no voter is confused on a particular vote center that is just a ballot drop box during those 3 days. And I think that was everything. If there's any other questions, happy to answer.
Thank you. Seeing no one else in Carson City and seeing no one coming to the table in Las Vegas, we will now AVH go back to the phone lines for Assembly Bill 306 for testimony in neutral, please.
Thank you, Chair. The public line is open and working. We have no callers for neutral at this time.
Thank you. And with that, I will invite Speaker Yeager up for some closing remarks.
Steve Yeager for the record. Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee, thank you for hearing this bill today. I know these bills are not always easy to hear. There's a lot of testimony. I want to say that I very much appreciate those who participated in the process today, both in support, opposition, and neutral. I think some of the concerns that were raised are obviously legitimate. We're going to have security. These boxes will be manned and secured in a way. I told this committee we were working on that. So no, these aren't going to be drop boxes that someone can just pull up in a truck and steal them. I think that just belies common sense. And I do want to clarify something I said, because I think, we live in a world sometimes where I think people hear what they want to hear rather than what was actually stated. So I want to be very clear. I said that fraud has been almost non-existent in this state, and that our elections are safe and secure, and that the results are legitimate. And I said those who question that are conspiracy theorists. I stand by those remarks. They are. All of us here, including, and all of us who are not here, from the president down to the governor to all of us, we work really hard to win elections. We put ourselves out there. We do the work. So when people come to this building and somehow try to delegitimize legitimate elections, I find that offensive. And I believe that those are conspiracy theorists. And it's not just me. Chair, I just want to share with the committee, I have an article here from December 20th, 2024, written by David Charnes. This is from 8newsnow.com. This is about the 2024 election. The Nevada Secretary of State's office was investigating 180 double vote attempts from the 2024 general election. 180. Okay, now let me give you a sense of 180 is 0.0001% of the nearly 1.5 million ballots cast in Nevada. If someone's going to tell me that 0.0001% is a sign of massive fraud, that's false. That's not living in reality. In addition, out of those, only 8 of those cases were referred to the Attorney General for prosecution. We're talking 8 out of 1.5 million votes cast. So yes, I stand by those comments. I didn't say you were a conspiracy theorist if you opposed this bill. There are legitimate reasons you might oppose this bill and other bills. But I did say if you are the one that's standing up and spreading falsehoods about our elections, then you are a conspiracy theorist. 2,000 Mules is a piece of propaganda just as fake as Nevada's fake electors were back in the last election cycle. Chair, I will continue to work on this bill. We're going to get it in good shape. I thank you for the time today, and I ask for your support of Assembly Bill 306.
Thank you, and I will now close the hearing on Assembly Bill 306. With that, we will be on our last item of business today, which is public comment. Each person has 2 minutes to provide testimony. Written public comment may also be submitted to the committee up to 24 hours after the meeting. I will remind everyone of the call-in number and meeting ID for those wishing to provide public comment over the phone. The call-in number is 888-475-4499, and the meeting ID is 830-5632-5537. So we'll start here in Carson City. Seeing none, we will go down to Las Vegas. And seeing none, we will go to you, AVH, on the phone lines for anyone wishing to give public comment. Don't forget to state and spell your name for the record, and you will have 2 minutes.
If you would like to provide public comment, please press star 9 to take your place in the queue.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Cyrus Hojati, Cyrus Hojjaty. I respect views and opinions from all sides regarding what's been going on in our elections. You make great points. There's no fraud. The former Republican Secretary of State confirmed that regarding 2020 and the elections prior. Now, personally, I don't trust anybody on either side. I like to do my own research and see with my own eyes. I don't just take things what people tell me. I have to see reality. And again, I respect all sides. Now, if the elections, like 2020 or whatever, are secure, then I like all of you guys to admit that the elections of the year 2000 with Bush versus Gore, with the chaos that happened in Florida, 2004 with Bush versus Kerry, the 2016 Democratic primary with Bernie versus Hillary, the 2018 Georgia gubernatorial election were all legit because we kept hearing for years that these elections were fraudulent. I even have a clip of Senator Harry Reid talking about how 2004 was kind of illegitimate or something like that. So I think you guys should admit that our past elections for the last several decades were legitimate. I mean, remember 2016 with the DNC, Donna Brazile, Debbie Wasserman Schultz? We were told that they were cheating out Bernie Sanders. WikiLeaks talked about it. I guess that was all fake. I mean, if that didn't happen, Trump would have never won in 2016. Think about it. Now, I can tell you this. I certainly don't like the way our elections are done. Let me give you an example. Last Thanksgiving, I was in Southern California, and I just found out that one of the congressional races were confirmed. I mean, what is this supposed to mean? In 2004, coming home from school, I was 12 years old. The day after the election, it was
Thank you.
confirmed that we
AVH,
knew
next
that Bush
caller.
won re-election.
Hello, especially for the chair. This is John Carlo. And wow, Cyrus, that was good job, buddy. No, I met the people who filmed 2000 Mules. They were working with the FBI. Okay, they were working with the FBI. This is a legitimate research that has a documentary that's been done on drop boxes, and their lives were being threatened. Are you going to tell me that's all fake? That's just not real thinking, okay? And there's also currently a court case with the Secretary of State right now in court being heard by a judge about inaccuracies from multiple counties, discrepancies, constitutional violations. And even at the Clark County Election Department, I was there. Votes are not secure. There are no cameras, okay? We don't use cameras. There's no, people were not allowed to go in there. The vote is not secure in Clark County. Why don't we actually use our brains and start thinking about fingerprints, okay? That's putting fingerprints to our votes. That would be even more secure. But I really do want to tell all the Democrats that voted for SB 131 in the last session that blood is on y'all's hands, and you will be held accountable to God for wanting to murder little babies in the womb. And that this was the first time that women held a majority in the state house. And what did the women Democrats want to do? What was the number one bill that they wanted to pass? Killing little babies. What a disgrace. This is, we will do everything we can to pray to end abortion. But this is, you guys are, you
AVH,
ladies
next
are
caller.
driving
Thank
this
you.
country.
My name is Andy Thompson, ANDYTHOMPSON. I was attempting to comment on the opposition to the bill. I'll go ahead and do that now. I
Thank you.
strongly
We
oppose
have
Assembly Bill
already closed
306.
opposition to the bill. You are free to give public comment on anything that is not the bill.
Okay, so I oppose Assembly Bill 306. I
AVH,
also
next caller,
encourage
please. Thank
legislature.
you.
Yes, my name is Leslie Quinn, and I just want to say that wrong is always wrong, even though everyone is doing it, and right is always right, even though no one is doing it. And the fact that wrong information has been given in regards to any type of voting and is validated by any party still makes it wrong. So we need to have validation with true facts, and we need to not live in a fantasy island. And it is still offensive what Assemblyman Yeager said, and it will continue to be offensive. So we live in America. We are all the same kind. We're humankind. So let's not forget that. And let's remember, legislators, you work for we the people. You get paid by we the people. You were voted in and you can be voted out. So be respectful of those and your constituents and stop voting your own decisions and vote for us, not yourself. Thank you.
Thank you. Next caller.
Yes, my name is Daniel Smith, SMITH. I just want to, state that Assemblyman Yeager, you have to look at the facts. And matter of fact, like I said, there is a bill that is in the courts right now that has evidence. Plus, we have, an expert that shows that down here in Clark County, our election process is corrupt. And that's just plain and simple. So, please, conspiracy? No. Facts? Yes. God bless you, and God bless America.
Thank you. Next caller.
Hi, this is Katree Saunders for the record. KATREESAUNDERS. I am a longtime advocate and social justice warrior at a state and federal level, and I've dealt firsthand with the corruption with Nevada State Legislature on bills regarding cannabis legislation and other bills last past legislative session. So I don't like to be gaslit when I've lived it, the reality of what bad legislation does to the state and what it does to Nevadans. It's deplorable and disrespectful to call people conspiracy theorists when they've actually had to deal with fraud and injustice in the state of Nevada, on top of making the state of Nevada hundreds of millions of dollars. This is a social justice issue. This is a civil rights issue. God is watching. I will have justice. Those who have played a part in any legislation that has harmed my mental health and my kids' well-being, you will be brought to justice by God and by legislation and by President Trump. I deserve justice. I deserve a federal pardon for helping build the Nevada cannabis industry and infrastructure and then having the law changed to exclude me. Also, not only did it exclude me this past legislative session, they wrote a bill. I got wrote out by 0.3% because I was not in an impacted area, although I've been impacted on an astronomical level by legislation in LCB, the Legislative Council Bureau, is fraud and laundering the money in cannabis. And there's so much egregious behavior that needs to be brought to justice. So I don't like to be gaslight and telling me that it's a conspiracy theorist about fraud, not only with elections, but also with other injustices that other Nevadans, not only myself, have been privy to. Thank you for your time, Nevada State Legislature. I will have my justice. God bless America.
Thank you. Next caller.
Chair, we have no additional callers for public comment at this time.
Thank you. Thank you, committee members. And our next meeting will be Tuesday, I'm not seeing any other. I will close public comment. And so our committee members, our next meeting will be Tuesday, March 18th at 4 p.m. And seeing no further business before us, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you.